Watch this.
Halfway through the work week, here's what's ahead on the 208.
And they rely on that as revenue to the government.
If you don't pay your taxes, did you know? You could lose your home. But maybe you didn't know, state law also allows for even more to be taken. But Idaho lawmakers are now locking in on closing a loophole. Andrew Bartline will explain. Sticking at the State House, sending a message. Idaho legislators want to send Congress and the White House an urgent update. They say something needs to be done with immigration and workforce visas. How about this for a call to action, while also getting creative? We're getting up close and personal with Martha. Property taxes get a lot of attention each legislative session, but they create a very tricky line for Idaho lawmakers to walk. The state of Idaho doesn't want to collect these dollars. It's all up to the local governments within your county, and the government will go after every dollar they're owed. The county will even repossess and sell your home to make that happen if you don't pay your tax bill. But when the house sells for more than the original tax bill is worth, the government will keep that profit too. It's a whole thing. Maybe you don't know about it, but Idaho lawmakers, they do. And they unanimously voted earlier to call it what it is, theft. It's a whole conversation that gets very deep into the weeds, but it's one of those things over at the Idaho legislature that our lawmakers, well, they need to dig into it. Here's Andrew Bartline.
There's no way around paying what's lawfully owed.
For property taxes.
And no one's in the business of collection quite like the government.
They're legally allowed to foreclose because you owe them a debt.
But that creates a slippery slope when the property value far exceeds the debt.
Home equity theft.
Maddie Clark's followed this for a year.
So they're allowed to profit off foreclosing. This made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where they had a unanimous decision to say this is unconstitutional. They're taking more than what they're owed, and it's excessive.
But some states still need to clean up their books.
And that got my attention.
Representative Jeff Ayler's day job lined up perfectly.
I dive into tax policy and get into numbers, and so this thing is right up my alley. It really just feels like an overreach on government power.
But even after the country's highest court settled on an 8-sided solution, this issue is far from tied up in a pretty bow.
Idaho's got a loophole.
Instead of a sale, an Idaho government can repossess a home and transfer it to another agency.
And so they never have to repay the excess equity.
Idaho's not the only state with these loose laws. And outside our borders, the system's shown to be ripe for abuse.
One of the things that really got me worked up is some of these states and some of these cities do this so much that they actually put a budget item for this type of taking, and they rely on that as revenue to the government.
The U.S. Supreme Court summarized the modern era problem with biblical pause.
Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's.
And no more.
A fancy way to say, time to level the playing field.
I'm trying to think of an exception to this or anywhere in the private business world that somebody could get away with this and without being the government, and I can't think of one right now.
Representative Ayler's pitched a bill to close that loophole. All future repossession gifts would be banned. It unanimously passed both chambers.
So that loophole is now closed.
Going forward, there's no way around it. The state now too must pay what's lawfully owed.
I think the winners in all of this is the Idaho taxpayer, the Idaho property owners, so that they won't have to face this unfairness in our state.
To be clear, this is not an official law signed onto the books right now. The governor is yet to sign it. I don't believe he's received it yet. In the event of something very unexpected, though, the legislature is in a position to override a veto with unanimous support. Joe, sometimes we see votes change. If something were to get vetoed, something real weird would have to happen. This is in place to be law.
It's interesting, too, because it's one of those intricate situations where this is a very specific situation, and unless you find yourself in it, you probably would know nothing about it.
Yeah, and they say because it gets transferred to another agency, if something like this is happening, it would be difficult for them to track. The Mountain States Policy Center says they've looked and tried to find it. They're not seeing like this happening widespread in Idaho. But from 2014 to 2020, there's more than 1,000 of them that happened. I believe it was in Minnesota. It was a Midwest state. And as you heard Representative Ayler say, some local governments budget this into their budget.
Yeah.
They're saying we're going to make X millions of dollars a year by doing this. It's fascinating.
Fascinating. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it to see if and when the governor signs it. But Andrew, thanks for the report. All right, conversation on immigration, visa workers, border security continues across the country. What should the United States do about migrants entering the country at our southern border? The truth is, places like Idaho, we need migrant workers in crucial fields. Still, migrants are breaking the law by entering the country illegally, the ones that are doing that. There are plenty of people that do it the right way. Some say, though, that there needs to be a hard line drawn there. There needs to be a difference between the migrants and the people that are coming over and getting the paperwork. Others say, though, that there needs to be a fix. That includes a much-requested guest worker visa program for year-round agriculture, construction, food processing, just to name a few areas that those workers are badly needed and used in Idaho. So there's a combination of values and realities here in play. Lawmakers in Idaho continue to call on Congress and the White House to do something about it. A Senate committee this afternoon debated a draft letter they want to send to Congress, President Biden, and Idaho's congressional delegation. It's the Senate Joint Memorial 102, and it calls for the federal immigration system to be modernized, to secure the border, and to provide for a legal workforce of guest workers, and to also prohibit amnesty for quote-unquote illegal aliens. Critics say that the message from Idaho to Congress and President Biden, they say this doesn't go far enough.
This is actually past due. We're now at the critical point, and what we need now, halt the invasion, stop all the ancillary problems like the sex trafficking and the drugs and everything else, and then deal with I think what I would call the tertiary issue.
And those tertiary issues being workforce visas, figuring out how to populate the workforce in Idaho. So we also heard, though, from supporters that say the message, it's right on point, and that this is more than just sending a letter. Supporters agree that there needs to be border security, but the reality here in Idaho is our state depends on a foreign-born workforce.
We're not going to try and get down on the nitty-gritty. We can let those in DCs do it, but we do need to send a signal to our delegation members that this good body sees a need for reform, and it's impacting Idaho from border security to food security to labor, and let's get that done.
So the resolution passed out of committee with only one no vote. So why is it important for the lawmakers that they send a letter to our congressional delegation, Congress as a body, and President Biden? Well, supporters say that the Senate Joint Memorial is almost an act of desperation, calling on the powers that be to do something, do anything, as they say. Will they listen? It's a good question, but ramping up rhetoric is something that lawmakers hope will catch someone's attention in D.C. Sometimes, they say, you need to pound the table. That's what Senator Jim Guthrie, the sponsor of the resolution, says. Lawmakers are at the Capitol, though, as we've covered here on the 208, for hours and hours to make big decisions on how Idaho should operate. But what happens to a piece of legislation that goes through the committee process, it survives the debates, and then on a final vote, it's a tie? It's rare, but it does happen. All that work to end up in limbo. But this happened on the Idaho Senate floor late yesterday, and it's a reminder, by the way, about the duties that you, the people of Idaho, you vote for in general election years. Did you know? The lieutenant governor in Idaho, they get to have any tie-breaking votes on the Idaho Senate floor. Lieutenant governor serves as the president of the Senate. It's mostly an administrative rule, but running the floor session sometimes is one extra responsibility. For the very first time in his tenure as lieutenant governor, Scott Bedke yesterday, he got to make a tie-breaking vote. The legislation that saw the tie, House Bill 432, basically makes it a felony to divulge private information about PERSI, which is the state of Idaho's employee retirement program. It's a felony for divulging retirement system records. So a heated debate. Is it going too far? Well, supporters say that the law needs a mechanism to be meaningful. Critics say it goes too far. No matter what side of the aisle you were on this one, it boiled down to this.
The vote count shows 17 in favor and 17 against, with one absent. President votes aye. House Bill 432 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to the title is approved, and the bill will be returned to the House.
That was it. I was disappointed. I thought there'd be, I don't know, maybe a special song or a jingle, maybe the Sports Center alert. Only kidding, sort of. This is business after all. But you saw there in real time, the lieutenant governor realized it was a tie, and then he had to break the tie, voting yes. So the legislation passes. It goes back to the House now. But if you were wondering, the Senate and the House, it's a little bit different. Ties in the House, they essentially defeat legislation. They have to pass. There's no tie-breaking vote for the Speaker of the House. They only get a standard vote. Lieutenant Governor, by the way, he doesn't vote, only in the situation of a tie. We've seen your messages about low voter turnout and some odd experiences at the Republican presidential caucus over the weekend. Some of you are wondering if we are going to get back to a Republican presidential primary. Like Cindy in Nampa, who asked, have our legislators fixed the presidential primary issue yet? It's a great question, and they are actually working on it as we speak. Little backstory in case you missed this. In 2023, a new Idaho law inadvertently eliminated the presidential primary because of a technical error in the drafting of the bill. So, as it stands right now, the political parties, they create their own system to nominate a presidential candidate. That's why we have the caucuses this year. Legislation to fix that, though, it is waiting its turn in the Idaho Senate. It is named Senate Bill 1371, and the proposal would do a few things. It would create a presidential primary election to be held on the third Tuesday in April of each presidential election year. It would also move the regular primary election date from other offices from the third Tuesday in May, where it sits now, to the third Tuesday in April, an even number year. So they would align it. So that would be the fix. We'll keep you posted if they do it. Well, we've learned today that the man who spent more than 20 years in an Idaho prison after being wrongfully convicted of murder, police think this man has now been murdered in Las Vegas, and they now have a suspect. We have more details on Christopher Tapp's death and other things you should know in today's 411. Here's Abby Davis.
A suspect was named in the death of Christopher Tapp, who spent 21 years in an Idaho prison after being wrongfully convicted of murder. The Las Vegas Metro Police Department says 45-year-old Daniel Radomir has been identified as the suspect. According to KSNV, a news station in Las Vegas, the suspect is a former professional wrestler and unsuccessfully ran as a Republican for Nevada's 3rd Congressional District in 2020 and a Texas congressional seat in 2021. An arrest was issued today for Radomir. Las Vegas police say Tapp was in a fight in a room at a Vegas resort before he was found and taken to the hospital, where he died a week later. Earlier this year, police and the Clark County coroners ruled Tapp's death a homicide.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him.
Nikki Haley has dropped out of the race for the White House. The former South Carolina governor announced she is suspending her campaign at an event with her supporters in Charleston this morning. Haley lost to former President Donald Trump in the Idaho caucus on Saturday after only receiving 13.2% of the votes. Then she lost almost every contest in Super Tuesday yesterday to Trump, except for Vermont. Haley did not endorse her rival, the now presumptive GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump, but she did wish him well. The Ada County Victim Services Center officially has its new name. Today, leaders in the community dedicated the downtown building, previously called Faces of Hope Victim Center. It's at the same location in Boise, has the same phone number, and all the same services, just a new name. The Ada County Victim Services Center is for people experiencing interpersonal violence. Services include counseling, the ability to work with law enforcement, and forensic teams. You can go to the center on South 6th Street 24/7. Caldwell has a new neighbor. A mini horse is on the force. Caldwell police said Magic is a new addition to the Caldwell PD Mounted Patrol. The Mounted Patrol is a nonprofit foundation funded solely by donors. Giddy up! And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
Oh man, Lula. I love Lula. Only saw her for the first 15 seconds, but man, love at first sight. That was awesome. So we do have a bit of a pattern change ahead for us. I know we had a lot of that snow in the mix over the past 5 days, even in valley locations, but now we're entering a cooler and drier stretch. But there are still a few things worth talking about. Yes, it is going to be cooler, especially in the mornings. We're sitting about 10 degrees below normal for this time of year for both the mornings and the afternoons, but I think the mornings will be a little bit more noticeable for us with those cold temperatures. We also have fog that will be staying in the mix. This includes lower elevation valleys like the Magic Valley and mountain valleys as well, but we will see sunshine increase as we go into the next few days. I do want to mention the snow because it was record breaking for Boise for that date yesterday, so almost 4 inches of snow, which was even on the low side for the amount of moisture that we got. But we are already sitting at 7.4 inches of snow for the month of March, which is getting close to rivaling what we saw last year, which was an exceptional year for snow in March. 9.1 inches was the total, and it was the #1 snowiest March last year. So we're already getting close to that. So today we had a lot more of the clouds lingering at times, which limited our daytime heating, and the temperatures reflect that. You can see started to warm up a little bit more so in Treasure Valley spots as the sun came out later in the afternoon, but things stayed a little colder in the Magic Valley where we're still seeing some snow showers and clouds, but you can see the mountains also pretty close to even those valley temperatures. So things are trending a little bit drier for us. You can see the colder air sticking around as well, but as we go into the weekend, we will see more of the moisture start to come back in the picture. Late on Saturday afternoon and into Sunday, we'll start to see increased chances of moisture, and that continues all the way through the following week as well. So here's where that moisture is right now. We have had a warm front that was drifting to the south and is lingering right at the border, creating some of these long-lasting but light snow showers. You can see over in by Glens Ferry, we're seeing the snow start to dissipate even as we're still seeing some of those light showers fall. This is going to stay in the picture, the light snow showers, until later this evening before they dissipate for the rest of the night as that warm front continues to move south. However, clouds still staying in the picture, even though we will see mainly drier conditions. But as I mentioned, more sunshine will be on the way. Tomorrow we're expecting mainly partly cloudy skies, and then even on Friday we expect more sunshine, but you can see mountains, more sunshine than valley locations and a little bit less clouds, but colder temperatures. So a very chilly start for us, maybe feeling a little bit more like winter than like spring. Technically it is spring for meteorological seasons, but definitely feeling more like winter. So we're expecting the lows to be in the 20s in valley locations and the highs in the 40s through Friday. We start to get closer to that 50-degree mark as we go to Saturday, but Sunday we start to get above that 50-degree mark. However, after that point, we're trending warmer and wetter, so we will be seeing the precipitation return to our forecast.
All right, Boise's iconic 5-day festival, Treefort Music Fest, it is right around the corner. Are you ready for this? It seems like just yesterday we were recapping how everything went, but here we are a year later. And all the forts, yes, everyone talks about the music and maybe the beer at Ale Fort, but there's also so many other forts to enjoy, like Hackfort. Have you heard of this? You might associate that with tech and innovation, but how about combining tech, innovation, and art in an eco-friendly way? That's what Michael Blood is doing with Martha, a Hackfort Art Project made by donated e-waste. Our photojournalist Jason Foster introduces us to Martha.
Do you have some old tech lying around? Well, do I have a story for you? It's this story. I'm Michael Blood, and I'm the director of Martha. This right here is a project we're building for an exhibit at Hackfort to bring awareness to the need to recycle e-waste. I'll just give you a breakdown of the whole process. We're collecting it. We're going to turn it into a large exhibit that we show at Hackfort, and that's later this month. And then after that's over, we are going to take all of it, we're going to disassemble it, and we're going to take it to a recycling center. We are absolutely accepting donations. We're hoping to receive a couple of really large donations, maybe equal to that in size. It will be community created. I do have an idea. Right now, we've just named it Martha. At our first kickoff event where we're asking people from the community to come and participate in the building of this, we are going to define what the vision is that it should look like. The first time I envisioned this, I thought of a giant robot made out of e-waste. We've scheduled our kickoff meeting where we're asking for volunteers to both sign up on our website and just show up this Saturday at 10 a.m. to help us build this. In our kickoff meeting, we will be defining the rest of the schedule. We'll have somewhere between 4 and 6 sessions where we're going to get together and we're going to actually construct this art. ART stands for the Advocacy and Responsible Recycling and Reclaiming of Tech Together. We have about 2 weeks left before Treefort to build this. And so, like I said, on Saturday we're going to have our kickoff meeting. We're going to start constructing it. Then we'll have a couple more sessions where it really takes shape before March 20th, which is the day we go and actually install it into the interactive space at Hackfort.
All right, you can help bring Martha alive by donating your e-waste to Hackfort, or you can donate your time to help. You can volunteer to help build, plan or set up, take video, and much, much more. And you can sign up through the Hackfort website. And then you can see Martha during Treefort, so we'll get you some pictures and we'll circle back to that if you miss it. Treefort runs from Wednesday, March 20th until Sunday, March 24th. Comments are next. All right, short on time, so we'll get right to the comments here. This person says, watching your show today, thank you as always. It's great to hear they finally put a bill through once the governor signs it to protect Idaho citizens about foreclosures. Thanks from Bob. Yeah, that's a really interesting story from Andrew. I didn't know anything about it, so the more you know here on the 208. And this person bringing up some points, what happens if you shut down the dairy industry by deporting the entire dairy workforce and all of our politicians turn a blind eye? Well, Mike in Twin Falls, the answer to your question is that dairy prices will go up if they can't staff the dairies. We'll get into this more tomorrow.